I still remember the crash like it happened just moments ago, even though it's been months. The sharp screech of metal on metal, the sudden rush of adrenaline, the feeling of weightlessness, it all hit so fast. One moment, I was driving down a familiar road, lost in the quiet thoughts of an ordinary day. The next, my car was spinning uncontrollably, 1,000 voices of terror filling my head. I had no time to react, no time to brace for what was coming. I only remember the impact, the way the world seemed to explode in a burst of light and sound before everything went black. When I woke, I wasn't sure where I was, or who I was. My body felt heavy, disjointed, like it didn't belong to me. The usual hum of life, the sounds of cars, people, the air itself, had fallen silent. All I could feel was an overwhelming sense of disconnection, disconnected from my body, from the world, from everything I had known. I tried to move, but nothing happened. My eyes, wide open, couldn't see a thing, and yet I wasn't blind. There was no darkness, no light. There was simply nothing. Then, as if in response to my confusion, I felt it, a presence. It wasn't a sound, nor was it something I could touch, but it was unmistakably there. A warmth. A comfort. A gentle force that surrounded me, like a soft hand on my shoulder, guiding me without speaking a word. "You're safe," the voice said, though it wasn't spoken aloud. It was more of a feeling, an understanding that flooded my being. "You are not alone." I wasn't sure how to respond. But I felt a peace settle over me, the tension in my chest easing for the first time since the crash. And then, through the haze of my confusion, I saw the light. It wasn't harsh or blinding. Instead, it was a soft glow that grew until it enveloped everything around me. In the center of the light stood a figure. I can't say it was a person, not in the way we understand. It was more of an essence, radiating warmth, peace, and love. There was no face to see, no body to touch. But everything in me knew this was something I had never encountered before. This was something sacred. "Where am I?" I finally managed to ask, my voice, or what felt like my voice, barely a whisper. The figure's presence seemed to expand, and the calmness it emanated wrapped itself around me like a blanket. "You are between worlds now," it replied, not in words but in a deep knowing. "You are not ready to leave yet, but neither are you still where you were." There was no fear in the figure's response, no judgment. Just understanding. The sense of time was lost to me. I didn't know how long I had been in this place, or even if time existed here at all. It was as if the rules of the universe had been rewritten, and I was now standing on the edge of something beyond comprehension. The voice, this presence, spoke again, and this time, I could sense the gravity of what was being said. "There is much you need to understand. The world you knew, the life you lived, is changing. And you must prepare." I didn't understand, not fully. I wanted to ask questions, to scream out for answers, but a calmness washed over me, and I felt an inexplicable sense that everything would be revealed in time. I didn't need to rush it. And then, as if the very nature of the space I was in shifted, I felt the ground beneath me. Not solid earth, not like what I was used to, but something different. A gentle sway, like I was floating yet anchored in place. Around me, the air shimmered. A vision began to form, not in front of me but within me, familiar and strange at the same time. It was a vision of the future, but not like I'd ever seen it before. The world was teeming with new technologies, flashing lights, devices that promised convenience, safety, and endless advancement. But there was something else in the vision, something that I couldn't ignore. Beneath the shine of all these innovations, I saw the shadows, whispers of something darker. There was a sense of control, a loss of individuality, a reliance on a system that seemed too perfect to be real. It was as if the world was being slowly drawn into something that seemed to offer salvation, but only at the cost of everything else. I saw faces, thousands of them, walking in unison, all following the same path, all united by the same choice. At first, I thought it was a community, a united people working towards something greater. But as I looked deeper, I saw the chains that bound them. I saw that each person's choice to follow the path had consequences far beyond what they could see. And in the distance, looming like a storm cloud, was a symbol, one I couldn't fully understand at first, but its meaning was clear, a mark, a symbol of allegiance, a sign of submission. The figure's voice spoke again, gentle but firm. This is the path that many will follow. It will be easy, comfortable, and it will promise security. But it will cost them everything. I didn't know what this symbol meant or what was happening, but deep within me, I felt a cold chill. The image unsettled me. I knew then that this path was not just about technology or convenience. It was a spiritual crossroads. A choice between a future that seemed perfect on the outside but would destroy everything that truly mattered: faith, freedom, and humanity itself. But how can they know? I asked, my heart aching for those who would fall into this trap. How can anyone see the danger when it seems so good? The figure was silent for a moment, as if allowing the weight of my question to sink in. That is the challenge. The deception will be subtle. It will come not as an immediate threat, but as a gift, wrapped in the promise of safety and ease. But those who choose this path will not see what they are sacrificing until it is too late. The weight of those words hung in the air. It wasn't just about the mark, I realized. It was about everything. The gradual erosion of trust in anything other than the system, the rise of comfort at the expense of personal faith, and the steady withdrawal from the divine. The world was heading toward a future where convenience and security would slowly replace the need for connection to God, to truth, to one another. And what am I supposed to do with this knowledge? I asked, feeling the enormity of it all pressing down on me. The figure turned toward me, and for the first time, I felt its gaze, though it was not through eyes, not in a way I could understand. It was a gaze that pierced to the very depths of my soul. Prepare, it said simply. Prepare spiritually. Build your faith. Strengthen your community. You cannot walk this path alone. The words didn't just echo in my mind. They settled deep into my heart. The challenge wasn't just about surviving the changes to come. It was about how I would respond to them. Would I choose faith over convenience? Would I strengthen my connection to God, even when the world would pull me in another direction? And perhaps most importantly, would I help others to do the same? For the first time, I realized that my journey wasn't about avoiding disaster. It was about preparing for it, about standing firm in the face of deception and knowing that no matter how dark the world became, there was always the possibility of light. Remember, the figure's voice whispered as I began to fade from this place. The darkness cannot overcome the light, but only if you hold fast to it. And with that, I felt myself returning, not yet ready to face the world again, but forever changed by what I had witnessed. The journey was just beginning. As I drifted back into consciousness, the world felt unfamiliar. The sensations of the physical realm seemed distant, as if I were viewing them through a fog. But beneath that haze, there was a clarity that hadn't existed before. The figure's presence, calm, radiant, still enveloped me, and I felt it urging me to look deeper, to see what I had not yet understood. I wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but there was a quiet urging within me to simply observe. And so I did. The figure spoke again, its voice gentle yet full of authority. What you have seen is only a glimpse of what is to come. The world is changing, and many will follow a path that will lead them far from the truth. What you must understand now is how that path will be laid out, and how it will seem so easy, so harmless, that the masses will walk it without hesitation. I could sense the weight of the words, but I still couldn't fully comprehend. What do you mean? What is this path? I asked, my voice trembling with the need for answers. Without a word, the figure reached out, and in that moment, the world around me shifted again. What had been a still, serene light now expanded into a vast, panoramic vision. It was as though I were standing on the edge of time, looking into the future. The images that unfolded before me were not distant or vague, but as clear as any memory from my own life. I saw a world that seemed to shine with progress, cities rising tall into the sky, streets lined with clean, quiet vehicles that moved without a single human hand on the wheel. Everything seemed to be moving forward, towards something better, something safe, something efficient. At first, it was beautiful. The future, as society had always imagined it. Everything in its place, everyone connected, no pain, no struggle. But then, as I observed, a subtle shift occurred. The faces of the people in these cities began to blur. There was something artificial about their expressions, something missing. Their eyes, once full of life and individualism, now seemed distant, empty. They were connected, yes, connected to the system. They were all part of a grand design, a perfect network of convenience and security. And then I saw it, the mark. It wasn't obvious at first. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic image of fire or brimstone as many had imagined it. No, it appeared as something small, almost insignificant, at first. A tiny chip embedded beneath the skin, just behind the hand. It wasn't a painful process. It wasn't a public declaration. It was as simple as scanning a wrist at a checkout counter, as natural as unlocking a phone. And in that moment, when the chip was placed, the world became a little bit more connected, a little bit more unified. But it wasn't just the technology that made the people in these cities smile. No, it was the promise that the mark brought, the promise of absolute security, of safety from danger, from want, from illness. It was the future of convenience, a world where technology could solve every problem. Where no one would have to worry about their place in the world. Everyone would have access to everything, instantly. Life would be smoother, easier. Nothing would be left to chance. The mark would be the key to this perfect life. And with it came power. Power to control, to govern, to give and take, to ensure that everyone who accepted the mark could take part in this utopia. But then, the vision turned dark. I saw the consequences, not in a blaze of destruction, but in the quiet, unspoken reality of what came after. People, their faces blank, no longer chose. They were part of the system, yes, but they were no longer free. They had traded their personal autonomy for security, and with that trade came a loss of something far more precious, their souls. The mark was not merely a technological advancement. It was a spiritual one too. It promised freedom, but in reality, it led to enslavement to a system that demanded loyalty and allegiance, but offered no real connection to the divine, no freedom of conscience, no room for faith. It was a subtle thing, creeping into every aspect of life, unnoticed until it was too late. I saw how the initial acceptance of the mark seemed harmless. People didn't understand what they were giving up. They didn't see the larger picture, the spiritual cost of choosing convenience over connection. As the years passed, more and more people embraced it, their lives becoming easier, more integrated with the technology that seemed to promise them everything. But with each passing moment, they lost more of themselves. They became disconnected from the divine, from the eternal truths that had once grounded their lives. They became so dependent on the system that they couldn't even imagine a life without it. And for many, that dependence would eventually lead to their spiritual demise. The figure spoke, as if reading my thoughts. They will not see it for what it is, it said. They will not know the true cost until it is too late. For the mark will offer them everything they desire, peace, security, comfort, but at the cost of their soul. And once they have chosen it, they will be bound to it. There is no going back. I felt a coldness in my chest as the full weight of this truth sank in. But how can they know? I asked. How can anyone see the truth when it seems so good? The figure paused for a moment, its presence growing more intense. That is the deception, it replied. The enemy does not come with a sword or a fiery sign. The deception will be slow, subtle. It will come in the form of promises, promises of a better life, of peace and safety, of a world where all needs are met. But those who accept it will give up their freedom in ways they cannot understand. I saw the faces of those who had chosen the mark, people I knew, people I loved, their expressions blank, hollow. Their lives had become perfect in the world's eyes, but their hearts were empty. The connection they had to the divine had been severed, and in its place, they were left with an unshakable sense of loss. But how can anyone resist? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. How can anyone stand against something that seems so right? The figure's response was calm, filled with a deep, enduring peace. "It is not easy," it said. "But those who are prepared, those who have built their faith, their communities, their strength, will be able to stand. They will see through the illusion. They will know what is true. And they will be the ones to help others." The vision faded, and the weight of what I had just witnessed settled into my chest. The future wasn't just uncertain, it was filled with dangers, hidden beneath the shiny surface of progress and convenience. The mark was not just a physical thing. It was a spiritual choice, one that would test the very soul of humanity. And I realized then that my journey was only just beginning. The images of the future began to fade slowly, replaced by a quiet darkness that felt heavy with unspoken truths. I was left with the overwhelming weight of what I had witnessed, the subtlety, the allure of the mark, and the inevitable path that so many would take without even realizing the cost. The figure, now beside me once more, spoke softly but with an undeniable sense of urgency. "You have seen how the world will begin, how the promises of convenience and safety will draw people in. What you have not yet seen is how it will happen, how it will seem so right, so easy, that people will be willing to give up their freedom without even a second thought." I felt a chill run through me. But why? Why would they choose something so dangerous? The question had been on my mind since the vision began. The promise of security, I understood, but what was the true price? How could people not see the spiritual cost? The figure paused for a moment, its gaze gentle but filled with profound wisdom. "It will not come as a sudden, dramatic shift," it explained. "The mark will not be forced upon them with fire and fury. No, it will be a slow process, a gradual acceptance, piece by piece. The deception will come in small, seemingly insignificant steps, each one appearing harmless, even beneficial. The world will look at it and say, 'This is the way forward. This is the future.' But each step will draw them closer to something far darker than they can imagine." I could feel the weight of this truth beginning to take shape in my heart. "So, they won't realize what they're giving up," I whispered, trying to grasp the enormity of what I was hearing. The figure nodded. "They will be told it's for their own good. They will be told that accepting the mark will bring them peace, bring them safety, and bring them comfort. It will be disguised as progress, a natural evolution of technology, of society, of the world they have come to know. It will seem harmless, even desirable, at first. And slowly, like the rising tide, it will sweep across the world, until no one can stand against it." The scene before me shifted again. This time, it was not the grand cities I had seen before, but a more personal, intimate setting. I saw people, everyday people, families, friends, coworkers, each one going about their lives, oblivious to the subtle changes taking place around them. Their lives were filled with distractions, entertainment, social media, instant gratification. The things they had once valued were replaced with an endless stream of convenience. The mark was there, though it wasn't clear at first. It began as a small device, something as simple as a smartphone app, a digital wallet, a smart card. At first, it wasn't a part of the body. It was just something that made life easier. A better way to buy groceries, to pay bills, to secure their homes. It seemed harmless, an upgrade, a way to keep up with the times. Everyone was doing it, and it made their lives more manageable, more connected. But soon, the convenience began to feel like a necessity. The world grew faster, busier. People relied more and more on their digital devices to navigate daily life. They felt safer, more secure, more in control. And soon, the physical world began to fade away. People connected through screens, living in virtual spaces that seemed more real than the world around them. They were drawn into a system of efficiency and security, a system that promised everything they desired. And then, without warning, the mark arrived. It wasn't forced upon anyone. It wasn't a sudden change. It simply became the next step, the next logical progression. It was sold as the ultimate convenience, the final piece of the puzzle. A tiny chip, easily embedded, seamlessly integrated into their daily lives. At first, it was an optional choice, one that seemed like a simple upgrade, a necessary step to keep up with the changing world. Everyone was doing it. Everyone wanted to. The figure's voice returned, now filled with an unmistakable sadness. They will not realize what they have chosen until it is too late. They will not see that in their desire for comfort, for security, for progress, they have sacrificed their connection to the divine. They have traded the eternal for the temporary. They have exchanged the true freedom of the soul for the illusion of safety. I could feel my heart heavy with this truth, the slow realization of how deep the deception would run. But why is it so hard to resist? Why would people choose this, knowing what it could cost? The figure's eyes met mine, filled with compassion. It will not be easy to resist. The mark will not come with threats or violence. It will come with promises, promises of peace and prosperity. People will be convinced that it is the only way to survive, to thrive, to keep up. It will be the new normal, the only option in a world that will be more connected than ever before. The vision shifted again, showing the future I had come to dread. I saw a world where people had become so integrated into the system, so reliant on the convenience it offered, that they could no longer function without it. They would no longer have the ability to choose, because the very act of choosing would be taken from them. The system would dictate their every action, every movement, every thought, because they had given up their will to the system's demands. And as I watched, I saw something even darker unfold. The people who had accepted the mark were no longer able to discern the difference between truth and deception. They had given up the ability to choose freely, and in doing so, they had lost the ability to see beyond the veil. The system had taken everything, every choice, every connection, every bit of their humanity, and in exchange, it had given them an empty, mechanized existence. They will be tested, the figure said softly, not by overt persecution, but by the quiet erosion of their souls. The choice will not always be clear. The deception will not be obvious. And in the end, those who have not prepared, those who have not built a foundation of faith, will fall into the trap. But those who remain vigilant, those who have kept their eyes fixed on the divine, will see through the illusion. They will know the truth. I could feel a great weight settle upon me as the final part of the vision began to unfold. The figure's words echoed in my mind, those who remain vigilant will see through the illusion. But the truth, it seemed, was not just for me to know. It was for the world to understand. And with that realization came the pressing question, what will I do with this knowledge? The vision faded, leaving me with a sense of urgency. I understood now. The mark was not just a physical choice. It was a spiritual test, a test that would determine the fate of many souls. And as the future unfolded, the choice would grow clearer, the lines between truth and deception ever more blurred. And I knew, with unwavering certainty, that the time to prepare was now. The vision faded, and for a moment, I was left alone in the stillness, the weight of everything I had seen pressing heavily upon my soul. The dark future, the deceptive promises of the mark, it all seemed so overwhelming, so beyond my control. But as I stood there, feeling lost in the gravity of what was to come, the divine figure appeared again, a gentle presence in the midst of the chaos of my thoughts. You see now, it said, its voice soft but filled with a calm authority. You see what the world will face. But you also see that there is hope, there is a way through the darkness. It is not a matter of avoiding the storm, but of preparing your heart, your mind, and your spirit to stand firm in it. I nodded slowly, the weight of its words sinking in. How do I prepare? How do I protect myself from the lies that will deceive so many? The figure smiled, a warmth that seemed to fill the air around me. You begin by building your foundation. It must be strong and unwavering, rooted in your faith. Faith is the key that will carry you through this trial. Without it, all the knowledge in the world will be meaningless. But with it, you will see beyond the veil of illusion, and you will be equipped to face whatever comes. I closed my eyes, trying to grasp the enormity of what it meant to build such a foundation. And what else? How do I prepare my life for what lies ahead? The figure's gaze softened. You must build your community. You cannot face this alone. The world will grow colder, more disconnected, but it is within the warmth of a shared faith that you will find strength. Build relationships with others who seek truth, who seek to remain faithful. These bonds will be your shelter when the world turns against you. The word stirred something deep within me, a longing to connect, to build something meaningful that could withstand the coming challenges. But how do we build this community? What does it look like in a world that is becoming so divided? The figure's eyes shone with understanding. It will not be easy, but it must start with love. It starts with a commitment to one another, to supporting each other not only spiritually but practically. In times of hardship, when the system seeks to control, it will be the community of believers who will protect and care for one another. You will need to help each other survive, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The words echoed in my mind, and I realized just how vital it was to create a network of like-minded individuals, those who would stand firm in the faith no matter what the world might throw at them. It was not enough to simply believe. We needed to act on our faith, to build a community that would be resilient and unwavering. Practical preparation, the figure continued, is also necessary. The world will change in ways that will make it harder for individuals to survive on their own. You must prepare your body, your home, your resources. But these preparations are not just about survival. They are about giving yourself and your community the tools you need to stay connected, to endure the trials ahead. Prepare with wisdom, and remember that nothing is more important than your spiritual strength. I felt the urgency of these words as they sank into my heart. Practical preparation, I realized, wasn't just about stockpiling food or acquiring tools. It was about cultivating self-sufficiency, independence, and resilience. It was about knowing how to care for the basic needs of life, water, food, shelter, health, while never losing sight of the deeper, more lasting truths that would sustain me through the coming trials. I thought of the people around me, the family, the friends, the neighbors, and I realized that I could no longer wait for others to take the first step. It was time to begin now, to build the foundations of a community that would be ready to stand together in the storm. But how do I share these lessons with others? I asked, my voice filled with a sense of responsibility. How do I help others prepare for what's coming when they cannot yet see it? The figure's gaze softened, and I could feel the weight of its compassion. You share the truth with love and humility. You do not force it upon others, but you speak with clarity, with compassion. Your actions will speak louder than your words. Build your life upon the lessons you have learned, and those around you will see the strength and peace that come from your faith. The truth will become evident through your life, through the way you love, through the way you prepare, not just for yourself, but for others. The weight of the responsibility settled upon my shoulders. It will not be easy. I murmured. No, it will not. The figure agreed. But it will be worth it. The road ahead will be fraught with difficulty, with trials, with uncertainty. But those who are grounded in faith, who have built strong communities, and who are prepared spiritually and practically, will find the strength to endure. They will not be moved by the lies, the deception, or the fear. They will stand firm. I took a deep breath, the reality of what I was being asked to do sinking in. And I must share this truth with others, even if they don't understand? Even if they resist? The figure nodded. Yes. Even then. You are not responsible for their choices, but you are responsible for sharing what you have learned. Trust that the seed you plant will grow in its time, and that those who are ready will hear your message. But above all, remain steadfast in your own journey. Continue to grow, to build, to prepare. And as you do, you will become a beacon of hope in a world that is growing darker. I felt a sense of peace wash over me as the weight of my purpose became clear. I was not alone in this journey, and I did not have to have all the answers. But I could take the first steps, toward spiritual growth, toward building meaningful relationships, toward practical preparation. And as I walked this path, I could help others along the way, not by forcing them into belief, but by living the truth I had come to understand. As the figure began to fade, leaving me once again in the quiet space, I felt a profound sense of calm. The future still loomed ahead, uncertain and full of challenges, but I knew one thing for certain. I was no longer alone in this journey. I had the strength of my faith, the support of my community, and the wisdom to face whatever lay ahead. And with that I could walk forward, one step at a time, knowing that I was prepared, not just to survive, but to thrive in the midst of the storm. The stillness returned, heavier now, as though the weight of all I had seen was about to settle deep into my bones. The divine figure stood before me, its form radiating a peaceful glow, but its eyes, those eyes held something more. They were filled with both the gravity of the truth and the tenderness of love, a look that seemed to pierce through all the uncertainty swirling in my heart. "Before you return," the figure said softly, "I want you to understand one final truth, one that will guide you through all that is to come." I nodded, my heart beating steadily, but my mind racing. After all I had witnessed, the technology, the deceptions, the struggles, it felt impossible to fully comprehend how I could carry this weight back into the world. But there was a knowing in the air, as though the divine figure's words held the very key to unlocking the strength I would need. "You have seen what the future holds," the figure continued. "The trials, the temptations, and the choices that will confront humanity. You have seen how the world will grow darker, how it will seek to lead many astray. But in that darkness, there is always light. In the midst of chaos, there is always hope. And in the face of despair, there is always salvation." The figure's words wrapped around me like a blanket, soothing the rawness of my heart. "Salvation?" I whispered, unsure of how such a thing could still exist in such a broken world. "Yes," the figure said. "There is always the possibility of revival. No matter how far the world strays, no matter how deep the deception goes, the door to salvation remains open. It is never too late for those who turn their hearts toward me, for those who choose love over fear, faith over doubt." "But how can we find our way when everything around us seems to crumble?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. "How do we know the right path in such a broken world?" "You trust," the figure said, its voice filled with an undeniable certainty. "You trust in the light that has been placed within you. The path will not always be clear, and the world will grow increasingly uncertain. But you have been given the strength to endure, and as long as you cling to that faith, no matter how small it may seem, you will find your way." I felt the truth of those words deep in my soul. The world would fall into turmoil, yes. People would be deceived, led astray by the false promises of convenience, security, and control. But in the end, those who held fast to faith, who trusted in the divine, would find their redemption. The figure stepped closer, placing a hand over my chest. The touch was warm, gentle, yet infinitely powerful. "Do not despair," it whispered. "You have seen the darkness, but you have also seen the light. You have witnessed the choices that lie ahead, but you must remember that each person still has the power to choose to turn toward me, choose to seek truth, choose love." A surge of energy flowed through me, not in a forceful way but with a quiet, undeniable assurance. I understood, suddenly, that this message was not just for me. It was for everyone. It was a call to remain steadfast, to hold firm even when everything seemed to be falling apart. Faith, love, and community, these were the tools that would carry humanity through. The figure began to fade slowly, its presence still with me even as its form blurred. "Go," it said. "Go and live with purpose. Share this truth with others, not through words alone, but through your actions. Let your life reflect the hope you have found. Even in the darkest of times, let your faith shine brighter than any fear. And know that I am always with you, even to the end of the age." The final words echoed in my mind as the figure disappeared completely, leaving me alone in the stillness. The world around me began to shift, and I could feel myself being pulled back into my own body, back to the life I had left behind. I gasped as I returned to consciousness, my body aching, my mind disoriented. The crash, the accident, it all came rushing back to me in a flood of memories. But as I took in my surroundings, I realized something had changed within me. I was not the same person who had fallen unconscious moments, or perhaps what felt like an eternity ago. I had been given something profound, something that transcended my understanding. The world would grow darker, I knew that now. The mark of the beast was not a distant prophecy. It was already taking shape. The systems of control, the promises of convenience, the subtle coercion that would lead many astray, these were no longer abstract concepts to me. They were real. But in the midst of all of this, I also knew something else. A truth that burned bright in my heart. There was hope. There was salvation. And it was not too late for those who sought it. I could feel the urgency of my mission rising within me. I needed to prepare, not just for myself, but for those around me. I had to share the truth, to help others see the light in the midst of the looming darkness. The path would not be easy, but it was a path worth walking. It was the path of faith, of community, and of love. With each step I took back into the world, I would carry this truth with me. No matter how far the world fell, there was always the possibility of revival. There would always be a way forward, if we chose to walk in the light, if we chose faith over fear, if we chose love over despair. The road ahead would be difficult, but I was not alone. And neither were any of us. With renewed strength, I set out, determined to live the mission that had been entrusted to me, to share the light, to prepare for what was coming, and to walk steadfastly in the faith that had been given to me. And as I moved forward, I knew with certainty that no matter how dark the world became, the light would never be extinguished.